welcome to another off-season edition of Spits and Suds. I'm Gavin Spittle of 105.3 The Fan, and when anything is happening with the Stars or NHL, you know Spits and Suds is there for you. And on this podcast, we're going to focus on why the Jason Robertson trade rumors are once again surfacing. Now, I think we are all Jason Robertson fans. He's been terrific in a Stars sweater. But let me run through the reasoning, and it's legitimate why he's in the news. And that's why this podcast is here. It's all about learning and growing. Try to take a step back and say, okay, here are the reasons. So whether you agree or disagree with me or our correspondents that come on Spits and Suds, at least you know the reasoning behind it, why Jason Robertson will be in the news. So we're going to give it some deep dives. I love getting into those deep dives, as you know, and insight on this. So the first nugget is something we've talked about. Two big contracts up at the same time for the Dallas Stars, Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson. So let's quickly dive into those numbers with Harley. Noah Dobson, who's really good, just traded from the Islanders to Montreal immediately, signs an 8-year contract, $9.5 million a season. Now, I think Thomas Harley's more valuable than Noah Dobson. Evan Bouchard, who we saw in the Western Conference Final, he receives a contract from the Oilers at $10.5 million per season. And Rasmus Dahlin comes in at $11 million. So all solid D-men, but Harley certainly is not out of place in that group. Therefore, I'm placing Thomas Harley, if I'm his agent and I'm negotiating, it's between 10 and 11 million per season. And I think Harley's camp has a legitimate case. And you can say, if you're a Stars fan, well, wait a minute, Miro Heiskanen only gets paid $8 million. Remember, it's not necessarily how good the player is. It's more when the player signs the contract. We just saw that with Jake Ottinger and Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks. When healthy, a very good goalie. But Jake Ottinger, a better career thus far. Thatcher Demko already makes more than Jake Ottinger. And Jake Ottinger just signed the contract. So it has more to do with the timing of the contract than the value of the player. So Jason Robertson is currently at $7.75 million. And this is an interesting tidbit that was thrown into the last Robertson contract. His qualifying offer, which Jason Robertson is a restricted free agent. So in other words, if the Stars do nothing and Jason Robertson becomes a restricted free agent, to keep his rights, and also if he gets an offer from another team, that team has to give the Stars compensation. That qualifying offer is already at $9.3 million. Now, all that means is that's the offer in which you have to sign Robertson at. So now you can negotiate that number down, but based on his point production and where other forwards are, we are nearly at $10 million, or maybe even 10.5. I think the Stars would like to be, and several reliable sources have said, somewhere around the $10 million mark. Maybe they can get a break with no state income tax here. Maybe Robertson wants to stay. So maybe you can get $9.75 million. But you are likely looking at a $10 million player, maybe even 10.5 per season. So the Stars have a number that they want to stick to. And why is that important now? This is why the rumors have resurfaced. As our Spits and Suds contributor Robert Tiffin points out on starsthoughts.com, can't say it enough, highly recommend that website to check out. The window as far as a Robertson negotiation opened up about a week ago, July 1st, to get a deal done. The two sides can now officially negotiate, and they can negotiate now through the season if they want. But if you remember, the last negotiations with Robertson's camp went on for a long time and weren't smooth. He ended up signing in October. Huge credit to Robertson. He had a great year, but those negotiations dragged and they weren't pretty. So if they drag again, you could certainly see Robertson play out his final season. But with that, you're then in a tough situation because you have to think of the opposing team and what they're looking at. And teams will know that you have two restricted free agents that are going to cost you in Harley and Robertson. You're not going to be able to sign two and fill out a roster, so you're not going to receive much in return. So I guess, yes, you technically could bring in two, but how long is this team going to be cap-strapped where they can't make moves? We already saw this year where in free agency the Stars could not improve their team. They basically used the money they had to fill the roster. So let's use the Toronto Maple Leafs, because Toronto just did that with Mitch Marner. He played out his contract. The Leafs had to get what they could prior to the July 1st free agency period. Now, they did receive Nicholas Waugh from Vegas, 30 to 40 point per season guy, just a real solid bottom six forward, nice size. But that's a perfect example of not having the trade negotiation power. So Toronto, knowing Marner was going to free agency, not being able to get a deal done, got something because they weren't going to get anything. Marner was going to leave, and he would have, he was a UFA, so he's free to go. So they traded him, and Vegas very smartly wanted Marner. He was their guy. So they gave up a player, which allowed them the negotiating rights prior to July 1st with Marner. And clearly you could tell that a deal was done because it was a sign and trade, and that allowed it to be an 8-year deal. So the difference is Robertson's a restricted free agent, but the strength is now Stars fans. And that's why Robertson's back in the news. The Stars are also over the cap right now, so a trade would give you cap flexibility to get under and also have room at the trade deadline. And how have the Stars advanced to 3 straight Western Conference finals? Clear the acquisitions of Max Domi, Evgeny Dadonov, and then Chris Tanev the following year. And then you look at this year where they had extra cap space and they were able to acquire Cody Ceci, Mikhail Granlund, Mikko Rantanen because of that injury money. So you can't do that again. But Jim Nill, as you can see, really improves the team at the trade deadline. This gives the cap flexibility necessary. So a terrific website for hockey is Daily Faceoff. Highly encourage it. Terrific content. With that, 2 highly respected names in hockey, Jeff Merrick, Greg Wyshynski, who we've had on the fan a bunch of times with G-Bag Nation, talking about these Dallas Stars. They talk about the Robertson issue, and they talk about some very interesting names, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yes, I think the Jason Robertson thing is going to be settled soon. I don't think that the Dallas Stars want this. It's either going to be a contract or a trade. I think that Jim Nill has a number in his head.
When we saw each other during the Cup final, you were convinced he was on the way out. How are you on that now?
I think that Dallas has a number in their mind, and if they don't get that number, then I think we're probably looking at a trade. That's what I believe.
Here's where I am on that. I listen. I think he's.
Let's not forget too. By the way, the last negotiation wasn't an easy one, and I don't know that Jim Nill wants to go through that again.
I think he adds something valuable offensively, although it's inconsistent sometimes. But I also think that when you look at that team, they need a defenseman who is of a high caliber.
Yes.
And they don't have a lot of options insofar to how to acquire that player. And I think Jason Robertson is one of the. Let me ask you this, because I've seen this guy's name out there a bunch. Robertson for Dougie Hamilton?
The only thing is that I don't know that the Dallas Stars are in a position to take on that much salary.
They're probably not.
For that player. That's why, you know what, honestly, what I wonder, and again, this is summer series of podcasts, me and Wish throwing it up against the wall, seeing what sticks here. Pick one of the young defenders from Anaheim. Like if you're the Dallas Stars.
And send Robertson out there for scoring on the wing, because they need it. No, that's
for scoring, and say, like, look, Pat, you want this? Man, Jackson Lacombe, has he been to Texas before?
Oh, my God. I'd make that trade, wouldn't you, if you were Jim Nill?
I love
Robertson. You make
I love Jackson Lacombe. I think this guy is an incredible defender. I love him. So yeah, if I'm Jim Nill, yes, I do.
Of course, Pat we're talking about is Pat Verbeek, the GM of the Anaheim Ducks, and that's Daily Face-Off with Jeff Merrick and Greg Wyshynski. Highly recommend Daily Face-Off, but they brought up some really interesting points, and you've heard us discuss on the program about the hole on defense. That number 2 pairing, which became a highlighted issue against Edmonton in the Western Conference Final. Your top 4 right now, Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Harley, Esa Lindell, and so when you talk to David Castillo, when you talk to Sean Shapiro, when you talk to Robert Tiffin, when you listen to Greg Wyshynski, when you listen to Jeff Merrick, everybody's saying the same thing. So if everybody's saying this and there's a hole on defense, Jim Nill and his staff have to be looking at that. New coach Glenn Gulletson has to be saying that. We have to be better defensively. So it's a major hole that the Stars have to fill. Because you got to get rid of that and Nils Lundqvist not going to be ready. Liam Bischel's not going to be ready. So what do? Started the year with Lyubushkin, and we saw how that turned out. He was a healthy scratch in the playoffs. Cody Cece's no longer on the team. So you have to ask yourself here, I think the Stars are better going into the regular season, acquiring a top-minute defenseman, than going into the season with Jason Robertson. As much as I love Jason Robertson, and it has nothing to do with Robertson, his value to the team, because what a career he's had. Also, pretty good two-way left winger. But we always talk about having to give to get. And we look at the biggest trades. And yes, Matthew Tkachuk has done wonders in Florida. But Florida also gave up Mackenzie Weegar, a very good defenseman, Jonathan Huberdeau, who had about 100 points. They didn't want to give up those players, but they knew they had to give that, by the way, I think along with a first-round pick, to receive. So Robertson right now, to me, is one of 4 assets that is going to get you that second pair defenseman. You have Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, Thomas Harley, and Liam Bischel. Well, clearly, getting rid of Harley and Bischel is not going to help your decor. So you don't want to do that. As much as I like Maverick Bourque, and you can tell me like, oh no, it just, you know what? Trade Maverick Bourque based on his season. And if he was that good, maybe you could have traded him to Carolina in that Mikko Rantanen deal. Specifically, Carolina was smart. They wanted Logan Stankoven. Stankoven was their guy. But if you're going to trade Maverick Bourque, you really need to pair him with draft assets or a solid prospect. You really don't have draft assets at this point. and he doesn't have the value of the other four. But do you really want to trade Wyatt Johnston? No. So all that's left is Jason Robertson to get back high value. Is Jason Robertson high value on your team? Yes, he is. But to me, the void defensively is much bigger than losing a left wing. And keep in mind, defense is probably more than ever a premium position. So you can say Evan Bouchard is overpaid, but when you look at the numbers, players like Bouchard, Noah Dobson, they just are not readily available. So I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a season ticket holder. I was season ticket with him for a number of years. I thought he brought up a really interesting point because sometimes we don't think of players this way. So when you think about Thomas Harley or Jason Robertson, Thomas Harley is either in the top 10 or just outside the top 10 as far as best D-men in the league. Good argument to make that he's inside the top 10. And that's with more seasoning to come. You've seen what's happened every year of Thomas Harley. He continues to improve. So let me ask you, where is Jason Robertson as far as forwards in the NHL? I think you could probably make a case in the top 20. But you see the difference. And like I said, defense is at a premium position. So when you have someone that is around the top 10 or greater at the premium position, that's your top asset. So all of these factors contribute to the chatter surrounding Robertson. And I think this window is critical. And if they can't get a deal done or are far apart, then the Stars need to make a decision. So from now until training camp, it's going to be really interesting. And Robertson will remain in the news. So let's talk about the players mentioned and the teams involved. First is Dougie Hamilton. Just a right shot D-man, which we all need. We all love those right shot D-men. They're few and far between. We've all wanted to pair up a right shot defenseman with Miro Heiskanen. He comes with a lot of experience. Just played his 13th year in the league. Real solid career. But because of that solid career, he also carries a $9 million per season contract for this upcoming season, plus 2 more after that. So that's $27 million left. And for that, you might as well sign Jason Robertson. Plus, Dougie Hamilton has a no-movement clause. Those have been lifted in the past, but Dougie Hamilton could say no. And then New Jersey or Dallas has no say in the matter. I'm sure that New Jersey wants to get rid of the Dougie Hamilton contract. That is a big price tag for a guy who's still good, but not the Dougie Hamilton of old. Too steep of a price tag. Could he be that defenseman? He has been injured in the past, but yes, he could. But the $9 million makes no sense. I did really like Jeff Merrick's thinking on Jackson Lacombe. Left shot defenseman, but only 24 years old. Only makes $925,000 this year. Restricted after this upcoming season. But he plays on the top pairing for Anaheim, along with Gudas. This is what I love. Time on ice. Highest it's been. Averages just over 22 minutes. Only 24 years old. Turns 25 at the beginning of January. And his time on ice is impressive. Puck-moving D-man. That allows you to keep Harley and Heiskanen together. Lacombe can pair with Esa Lindell, and you can do Bischel and Lundqvist / Labushkin as your final pairing. If you want to keep Dumba, You can do that at this point because of the salary. Or if you want to buy him out, you could do that, and you have even more cap money. On top of that, it's attractive for Anaheim because Robertson immediately becomes the number one left wing. That drops their left wings down, and they got some good ones. But you get Robertson on that first line, Cutter Gauthier on the second. Chris Kreider becomes your third line left wing. That's impressive. Plus, Anaheim, just 35 miles from where Robertson grew up. So he goes basically back to his hometown. To a good team that's rebuilding. Jason Robertson's not that old. You can sign him to a multi-year deal. And now you have that top point getter. You have a lot of talent on that Anaheim squad. Now, you can say to me, after hearing about Jackson Lacombe, Gavin Robertson is worth more. And I say just like those infomercials, but wait, there's more. I don't think Anaheim will budge on a first-round pick because they are in the middle of a rebuild. But they do have multiple picks. 2 fourth-round picks next year, so I'll grab one of those. I'll also grab a second-round pick in 2027 because they have 3 of those. If you really want to get greedy and they'll give it up, I'll take 2 of those second-round picks. So Jason Robertson, for a young second pairing defenseman in Jackson Lacombe, an immediate D-man in your lineup, and then I get a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick. I get draft assets, which I need. So I don't think, if I'm Jim Nill, of course I'm throwing this out there. Jason Robertson for Jackson Lacombe and Mason McTavish. McTavish is a restricted free agent. I don't think Anaheim does that. It doesn't make sense. If they do, take that immediately. But the way I'm looking at this is I'm filling a void with my D-man. He's young. He's on the up. I'm getting much needed draft capital. So let me know your thoughts, Stars fans. It really is an issue that can tug you both ways. At GJ Spittle on Twitter/X. We'll keep monitoring this situation. We'll talk to our correspondents, gets their thoughts. Also, if you're behind on Spits and Suds episodes, Robert Tiffin and I had a great conversation yesterday. Bunch of Stars topics. Toby Peterson, the new coach of the Texas Stars. Alain Nazardine remaining on the coaching staff and what he brings to the table along with Neil Graham. Stars development camp. Robert was there covering it. Did a great job. So we talk about some of the young prospects in the Stars development system. So be sure to check out that episode with Robert. You can always check him out at starsthought.com. And we'll keep rolling, of course. We are so glad you're here for the ride. If you could do me a favor, spread the word. If another Stars fan said, man, I need my Dallas Stars fix, just tell them Spits and Suds. We're throwing out new episodes all the time. We're not just going to throw out episodes just to throw them out there. We're going to try to give you the best information possible, thought-provoking topics regarding the Dallas Stars and the NHL. The second thing you can do, if for some reason, like you listen to the podcast on Apple, just give us a review. Hopefully it's 5 stars. We're nearing 100 reviews. That would be amazing if we could get to that number. And I am so blessed to say we are at 5 stars right now. Thanks to each and every one of you who took the time to review. I love it when you say you love the guests on the show because that motivates me to get guests. So we're going to have a ton more coming this summer as we make our way to training camp and beyond. So thank you one and all for listening and supporting Spits and Suds. Until our next episode, have a great day, everyone.